Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitya Gora Haribo, 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 Gora Haribo. Gora Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. All together. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai. So welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We will be reading from Canto 4, Chapter 22. This chapter is called Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the... Who's he meeting? The 4 Kumaras. Meeting with the Kumaras. And we'll be covering text 17 to 31. So the verse that we will focus on is, that we'll recite the Sanskrit for, is 21, and just recite it when we get there. So starting now from text 17. Great.
The great sage Maitreya continued, thus Satan Kumara, the best of the celibates, after hearing the speech of Prithu Maharaj, which was meaningful, appropriate, full of precise words, and very sweet to hear, smiled with full satisfaction and began to speak as follows.
All right. So yesterday we saw how the 4 Kumaras appeared. They arrived there in the palace of Maharaj Prithu, and he received them very nicely. He welcomed them very graciously, washed their feet, put the water on his head, glorified them with sweet words, and then he asked them a very important question. Does anyone remember what he asked them? Exactly. He asked them how to attain the ultimate goal of life. So this is a very important question, right? So now we're going to go into, in this section that we're reading today, and this will continue tomorrow, is the Kumaras' responses. So the head of the 4 Kumaras is Sanat Kumar. He's almost always the spokesperson. So Sanat Kumar is going to reply. And it says here that he's very satisfied. He smiled with full satisfaction because a devotee is happy when they're asked a question like that, right? It opens up a whole, okay, now I've got something to say. Okay, go ahead, text 18.
Jai. Sanat Kumara said, my dear, something happened. I don't know. Which verse was it?
18.
That was weird. I wasn't even touching the... Yeah, Maya's trying to get us. Okay, Sanat Kumara said, my dear King Prithu, I am very nicely questioned by you. Such questions are beneficial for all living entities, especially because they are raised by you, who are always thinking of the good of others. Although you know everything, You ask such questions because that is the behavior of saintly persons. Such intelligence is befitting your position.
Yeah, so yeah, he's very pleased because this question is not only a deep philosophical question, but it's also going to benefit everyone. And that's one of the qualities of great personalities, is that when an exalted personality asks a question, it's not just a random question or a mundane question or something that only pertains to them, but it's something that the answer to that question will bring about the ultimate good for all beings. So Sanat Kumar is, first of all, praising his question. And Prabhupada mentions that in the purports here that when there's discussion, when there's questions and answers amongst sadhus, then that benefits everyone. It benefits the person who asked the question, it benefits the person who's giving the answer, it benefits everybody who's hearing, who happens to be there in hearing distance. And it doesn't matter whether that person is a devotee, a materialist, a jnani, a yogi, everybody benefits from hearing the discussion. So, all right, yeah, go ahead. Oh, that's the next verse, 19.
When there is a congregation of devotees, their discussions, questions, and answers become conclusive to both the speaker and the audience. Thus, such a meeting is beneficial for everyone's real happiness.
Okay, so now we're going to hear about how does it benefit them. Text 20.
Sanat Kumar continued, "My dear king, you already have an inclination to glorify the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such attachment is very difficult to achieve. But when one has attained such unflinching faith in the Lord, it automatically cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart."
So this is the result of hearing the discussions of the devotees, is that it cleanses lusty desires from the core of the heart. It's very purifying. And Prabhupada in the purport here, he gives an analogy. He says, as silver becomes shiny by being polished, the heart of a materialistic person is cleansed of lusty desires by the good association of devotees. He goes on to say, actually the living being has no connection with this material enjoyment nor with lusty desires. Actually, we have nothing to do with these things. He is simply imagining or dreaming while asleep. But by the association of pure devotees, he is awakened, and immediately the spirit soul is situated in his own glory by understanding his constitutional position as the eternal servant of the Lord. So this is the effect of hearing, is that these things get cleansed away, the soul wakes up, and we realize that all this material stuff that we've been doing and consciousness that we've been having, it has nothing to do with us. It's just a illusory, dreamlike condition that we're in. And when by hearing, the soul wakes up and becomes situated in his own glory. Very nice, right? Okay, so let's continue. Now actually, Sanat Kumar is going to answer that question. He's going to start going into the answer. What is the ultimate goal of life and how to attain it? Oh yeah, this is the verse for the week. Thanks for reminding me. Sometimes I forget. Okay, so let's do the Sanskrit here. Shastre Shviyane Vasunishchito Nrinam Kshemasya Sadryag Vimrisheshu Hetu Asanga Atma Vyatirikta Atmani Dridharatir Brahmani Nirgune Chaya Shastre Shiyane Vasunishchito Nrinam Kshemasya Sadryag Vrimrisheshu Hetu Asanga Atma Vyatirikta Atmani Dridharatir Brahmani Nirgune Chaya. Please chat. Shastre Sriyane Vasunishchito Nrinam Kshemasya Sadryag Vimrisheshu Hetu Asanga atma vyatirikta atmani. Dridharatir brahmani nirgune chaya. Shastre siyaneva sunishchito nrinam. Shemasya sadryag vimrisheshu hetu. Asanga atma vyatirikta atmani. Dridharatir brahmani nirgune chaya. Shastre sviyaneva sunishchito nrinam. Shemasya sadryag vimrisheshu hetu. Asanga atma vyatirikta atmani. Dridharatir brahmani nirgune chaya. Let's do the word for word together. Shastreshu, in the scriptures. Iyan eva. Sunishchita, positively concluded. Nrinam, of human society. Shemasya, of the ultimate welfare. Sadryak, perfectly. Vimrisheshu, by full consideration. Hetu, cause. Asanga, detachment. Atma viriktikte, the bodily concept of life. Atmani, unto the Supreme Soul. Dridha, strong. Rati, attachment. Brahmani, transcendence. Nirgune, in the Supreme, who is beyond the material modes. Cha, and. Ya, which. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures. So this is nice. Sanat Kumar, he's not speculating. He's saying it is conclusively decided in the scriptures. Shastreshu. After due consideration. So not just that I just read it the other day, but I read it conclusively in many scriptures. It says this, and I've thought about it deeply, and I've come to this conclusion, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental beyond the modes of material nature. Please repeat. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures, after due consideration, that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental beyond the modes of material nature. Would someone like to read the purport?
Hare Krishna. Everyone in human society is engaged for the ultimate benefit of life, but persons who are in the bodily conception cannot achieve the ultimate goal, nor can they understand what it is. The ultimate goal of life is described in Bhagavad Gita 2.59. Param drishta nivartate. When one finds out the supreme goal of life, he naturally becomes detached from the bodily concept. Here in this verse, the indication is that one has to steadfastly increase attachment for the transcendence, Brahmani, as confirmed in the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.1. Athato Brahma Jijnasya. Can you pronounce that for me? I'm sorry.
Jigyasa.
Jigyasa. Without inquiry about the Supreme or the transcendence, one cannot give up attachment for this material world. By the evolutionary process in 8,400,000 species of life, one cannot understand the ultimate goal of life because in all of the species of life, the bodily conception is very prominent. Atato Brahma Jinyasa means that in order to get out of the bodily conception, one has to increase attachment to or inquiry about Brahman. Then he can be situated in the transcendental devotional service, Sravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. To increase attachment for Brahman means to engage in devotional service. Those who are attached to the impersonal form of Brahman cannot remain attached for very long. Impressionalists, after rejecting this world as mithya or false, Jagan Mithya, come down again to this Jagan Mithya, although they take sannyas to increase their attachment for Brahman. Similarly, many yogis who are attached to the localized aspect of Brahman as Paramatma, great sages like Vishwamitra, who also fall down as victims of women. Therefore, increased attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is advised in all Shastras. That is the only way of attachment from material existence and is explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.59 as param drishva nivartate. One can cease material activities when he actually has taste for devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended love of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life. Prema puram artha mahan. Without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfectional stage of the transcendental position.
Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for reading that. So we're hearing here the ultimate goal of life for all human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord. And here in the purport, Prabhupada is saying that this can't be achieved by Brahmavadis, by those who just meditate on the transcendental Brahman, because how are you going to become attached to that thing? You know, it's like, it's hard to become attached to just an energy, you know, even if it's a pure spiritual energy, it's an energy. You can't develop, you know, a strong emotional, strong and increased and steadfast attachment for something impersonal. And so they end up coming back down to the material world. And then he says even the yogis who try to become attached to the localized aspect of Brahman as Paramatma, they also fall down because other things are more attractive. So I thought it was interesting that the word that is used, the Sanskrit word in this verse for attachment is rati. So rati means attachment. It also means love. And rati is the name of the wife or the consort of Cupid. So it's that kind of love, you know, that's like not just love in a general sense, but really the feeling of being in love, you know, like head over heels in love, like intensely attached. And raise your hand if you've ever been in love, like in a big way. So anybody who's ever really been in love, it's like, it's very intense. It's like an all-consuming, overwhelming feeling that just, you forget about nothing else matters, right? You forget to eat, you can't sleep, you can't think of anything else. You can barely function, right? It's like, it just sort of takes over your whole being, because you're just totally absorbed in thoughts of the person and when you're going to see them next and the little thing that they said and the way they looked at you and, you know, how their eyes glittered and, you know, you're writing their name all over your book and on your arm and, you know, you just can't get them out of your mind. So it's this kind of rati that we want, is this increase that's ever increasing and steadfast, you know, that it's fixed. You're not going to fall down. You're not going to get bored with it and go back to doing the same old thing that you used to do. So we want this very intense. And he says, dridha rati. So as if rati wasn't already strong enough, but dridha, like very strong, fixed, determined, steadfast, like that, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's, Prabhupada brings that out at the end of the purport, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended love of God as the ultimate goal of life. So he's emphasizing this prema pumarta mohan, that this is the goal. The ultimate goal of life is prema. But in order to come to that prema, that intense love for Krishna, we have to give up our attachment to this material world. So detachment from the bodily concept of life and attachment to the Lord, the two of those have to go together. So then how to become detached from the material world? Prabhupada says twice in this purport, param dristva nivartate. What does that mean? We have to get the higher taste. So yeah, there's no way that we can get, we have a taste for material enjoyment. We're used to enjoying, the sense objects, the pleasures of this world, and we're not going to give those up unless we have something better, right? It's like a child is playing with something that's dangerous. They're not going to give it up. If you try to take it away, they're going to hold on to it like anything, and if you pry it out of their hands, they're just going to cry and throw a tantrum. But if you come along with something better, here, look, just take this, then they'll just put it aside and take the good thing. And so in the same way, we're like that. We've got a death grip on material enjoyment because we need pleasure, because that's our nature. Ananda Mayo Bhyasat. The soul is seeking pleasure, so we need pleasure. We can't live without happiness. So we're not going to give up our lower sources of happiness unless we're offered something better, unless we're confident that we're going to get something better. So we really need to get this higher taste. So then we need to start, even while we're still attached to material things, just start doing devotional service. Just start chanting the holy names, coming to the kirtan, taking prasadam, being with devotees, discussing these topics, because then we're going to start realizing, wow, this is actually so much better, And then we start realizing also that the extent to which I can actually enjoy spiritual life is in proportion to the extent that I actually let go of those other things. So then we start seeing the material enjoyments as no longer pleasurable, or at least not as pleasurable, but actually as blockages, as obstacles to our relishing the higher pleasure. So then we'll voluntarily let go of them, because we can't hold on to the two things at the same time. So when we get the higher taste and we realize that this is blocking us from getting a higher and higher, ever increasing higher taste, then we're like, oh, what am I even holding on to these things for? They're just trouble for me. So then we give them up. And that happens naturally as we go about performing devotional service in the association of devotees sincerely. So that's the ultimate goal of life. And now, but the question was how to attain it. Not just what it is, but how to attain it. So now the rest of this section, Sanat Kumar is going to talk about that. How to attain this ultimate goal of life. How to attain this intense, steadfast attachment to Krishna. So let's go ahead and read the next verse, 22. Oops. Yep.
Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves.
Yeah, so here you'll see in this section, Sanat Kumar is really going to be emphasizing hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead a lot. And he's already started, even when Prithu asked the question, it's like, oh, what a great question, because now we're all going to have the opportunity to hear. And by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord, then we can increase our attachment. So these are the main processes of devotional service, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. Sanat Kumar is going to really emphasize these things. And he says, worshipping the Yogeshvara, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Secondary. That the way that we worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead is by hearing and chanting. So that hearing and chanting is worship of the Supreme Personality of God. It is devotional service. And Prabhupada mentions in the purport that this Yogeshvara Upasanaya, Yogeshvara also refers to the devotees, because the devotees are also masters of yoga. So Krishna is the supreme Yogeshvara, and the devotees are also Yogeshvaras. So we need to serve the Lord and also serve the Lord's devotees. Hear and chant the glories of the Lord, and also hear and chant the glories of the devotees. That was some days ago when Radhanath Swami was speaking. The class was all that. He was just chanting the glories of the devotees, and we were hearing the glories of devotees, and we were all very happy and in Krishna consciousness. So, yeah, that's the first secret here that Sanat Kumar is giving. All right. So now we're going to hear some more. Text 23.
One has to make progress in spiritual life by not associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money. Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he could not live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment.
So here's the same things again, right? Detachment from the material stuff and attachment to Krishna. So here, that by hearing about the Lord, by performing the process of devotional service, we gradually become elevated and we become disgusted by sense enjoyment. Like Yamunacharya, he was saying that whenever I think of sex enjoyment, I just spit at the thought. It's not appealing to me anymore. It's just gross. Because now I've relished the transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord, and service in the association with the Lord's devotees, and it's such a higher pleasure that when I think of that, just rubbing flesh together with somebody else's flesh, it's just like, why would I do that? So, and then by that disgust, that actually helps us to become elevated and increase our appreciation for the Lord. And so Sanat Kumar is saying that we should mold our life in such a way that we can't live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorifications of the Lord. So sometimes devotees who come regularly for Bhagavatam class and who, have a habit of hearing every day, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. It's like if you miss the class for the day, it's like, oh my God, what did I do? It's just that the whole day's a wreck. It's it's kind of like missing chanting your rounds, So you get in the habit that you can't live in peace without hearing the glories of the name, without having some discussion of transcendental Krishna Katha. So that's a sign of spiritual advancement that we're developing an attachment. And also, whenever we're in a situation where we're forced to hear some mundane sound vibration, sometimes we, like for me, it's whenever I go visit my family, it's like it's just 24/7 mundane sound vibration, but you just have to tolerate it because they're not interested in Krishna consciousness, and you don't want to push it on them. So you just engage in that conversation, but in your back of your mind, you're just like, when is this going to be over? So, how long do I have to endure this? Yeah, it's rough. It's really hard. So, and you're just hankering for when you're going to be able to be back with the devotees so you can hear Krishna Katha and read Srimad Bhagavatam and, have those discussions and relish that nectar, drink the nectar of the glorification. It's really the nectar for which we're always anxious. And the more we hear it, the more we get a taste for it. Just like the more we chant, the more we get a taste for chanting the holy names of the Lord. So let's go to text 24. Oh, actually, one last thing from the purport to this text 23. Prabhupada gives, he talks about his mission. He said this Krishna consciousness movement is started for this purpose, so that hundreds of ISKCON centers may give people a chance to hear and chant, to accept the spiritual master, and to disassociate themselves from persons who are materially interested. For in this way, one can make solid advancement in going back home, back to Godhead. So this is the whole purpose of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The whole purpose for which we have this temple is to give everyone the opportunity to come together, hear about Krishna, to chant the holy names, to associate with devotees, to accept a spiritual master, and this way we can gradually detach ourselves from all those material things. Okay, text 24. Yes. Oh, who's got the mic?
A candidate for spiritual advancement must be non-violent, must follow in the footsteps of great acharyas, must always remember the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, must follow the regulative principles without material desire, and, while following the regulative principles, should not blaspheme others. A devotee should lead a very simple life and not be disturbed by the duality of opposing elements. He should learn to tolerate them.
Thank you. So here Sanat Kumar gives a bunch of things. This is reminiscent of the yamas and niyamas of the yoga system, right? It also starts with non-violence. So, and he uses the words yamar, akamar, niyamas. So he's talking about yamas and niyamas. So these are some of the rules and regulations of bhakti yoga. The Prabhupada explains these a little bit in the purport. He says, being non-violent can be achieved by seeing Krishna as the father of everyone, because that means that all living entities are the children of Krishna, and that we're all brothers and sisters. So then why would we be violent to our brothers and sisters? So it's a little shift of consciousness there that starts with being Krishna conscious. And then he says we need to follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas. And the purport, Prabhupada says, trying to advance in spiritual life outside of the disciplic succession is simply ludicrous. in other words, it's not going to happen. We can't make advancement without following in the footsteps of the acharyas. So essential. And then he says, remembering the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the purpose of all the rules and regulations of devotional service. Smartavya satatam Vishnu, vismartavya najatuchit. Always remember Krishna and never forget him. And Prabhupada says that this is possible only when we follow the regulative principles. So he links these things, that when we follow the regular principles, then we'll be able to remember Krishna. Otherwise, if our life is unregulated, then we'll be pulled here and there to thinking about so many different things. It says, following the regulative principles without material desire. And Prabhupada says, without material desire means becoming controlling the senses, becoming a Goswami, learning how to control the senses and restrain them from chasing after the objects of the senses. What's that? From having 4 brownies, yeah. When you see the brownies, you should think, I'm a Goswami. I'm going to control my senses. Yeah. And then he says we should not blaspheme others. What is the word here? Anindaya. So we shouldn't blast anybody. Like we heard, one of the 10 offenses against the holy name is sadhu ninda, to blaspheme the devotees. So we shouldn't blast sadhus especially, but we shouldn't blaspheme anyone. And what Prabhupada mentions in the purport is especially people of other religions. He talks about how people have there are different religions according to different modes of nature. And people who are influenced by those modes of nature, they're going to, they'll go towards those religions. They'll gravitate towards those religions that match the mode in which they're situated. And that's good for them because they're not necessarily able to follow the highest religious path of bhakti, transcendental religion. So don't discourage them from practicing a lower religion by blaspheming them. Otherwise, if they give up that, then what are they going to do? If they can't do bhakti and you tell them that their religion is useless, then they're going to be without anything. So we shouldn't blaspheme people of other religions. That's what Prabhupada emphasizes here. And then he says we should live simply. Nirtaya means simple living. Prabhupada says, eat to live, don't live to eat. He literally says that. It's simply eating for living and not living for eating, and sleeping only 6 to 7 hours are principles to be followed by the devotees. And then finally, tolerating opposing elements. tolerating the dualities of this world of heat and cold and all these things. So yeah, as long as we have a material body, we're going to get hurt, we're going to get sick, people are going to, say mean things to us because here we are in the material world. But we just need to tolerate, right? Tams titikshas vibharata. Tolerate the happiness and distress, come and go just like the winter and summer seasons, and we need to learn to tolerate them. But he says if we see that another devotee is suffering, then we shouldn't tolerate that. We should help the devotee we should try to help minimize their suffering in whatever ways that we can. And if everybody's doing that, then we'll all be happy. We'll all be taken care of. Okay, so those are the points here from text 24. Let's go on to 25.
The devotee should gradually increase the culture of devotional service by constant hearing of the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These pastimes are like ornamental decorations on the ears of devotees. By rendering devotional service and transcending the material qualities, one can easily be fixed in transcendence in the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Again, he's emphasizing hearing the qualities of the Lord, constant hearing of the qualities of the Lord. And these are our earrings. Just like you have your earrings that are always in your ears. So we should have these pastimes always in our ears, and those are the ornaments, the ornamental decorations on the ears of devotees. Okay, text 26. So text 26.
Upon becoming fixed in his attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by the grace of spiritual master and awakening knowledge and detachment, the living entity situated within the heart of the body covered by 5 elements burns up his material surroundings exactly as fire arising from wood burns the wood itself.
And this is very interesting. So this is explaining what happens if we do all these things, if we're hearing and chanting and following all these rules and regulations that Sanat Kumar is outlining, is that the body becomes spiritualized. So he gives this analogy that just like fire is there within wood, and when fire comes out of the wood, in other words, when the fire starts burning, then it transforms the wood into ashes. So in the same way, the soul is within the body, and when the soul is awakened by these processes of devotional service, then the spiritual energy just kind of blazes like a blazing fire, and it transforms the body into spirit. And that way the body becomes completely spiritualized. And we're no longer living within a material body, even though we're still, seem to be in the material world, but we're not in a material body, and we're not even in the material world, because our whole existence has become spiritualized by the presence of the soul, this awakening of the soul. Okay, text 27. Please read 27 and 28.
When a person becomes devoid of all material desires and liberated from all material qualities, he transcends distinction between action executed externally and internally. At that time, the difference between the soul and supersoul, which was existing before self-realization, is annihilated. When a dream is over, there is no longer a distinction between the dream and the dreamer.
28.
It's the last one?
No, but
when the soul exists for sense gratification, he creates different desires, and for that reason, he becomes subjected to designations. But when one is in the transcendental position, he is no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted you to read these two together, because if you just read 28, then it's a little confusing, because it says that the difference between the soul and the super soul is annihilated. So it almost seems like we're, what? We're no longer different, but we become the super soul. So just like when the dream is over, there's no distinction between the dream and the dreamer. So Prabhupada, Sanat Kumar clarifies it in the next verse, where he says that this means that he's no longer interested in anything except fulfilling the desires of the Lord. So the oneness that we achieve is that we no longer have a separate interest from the Lord, that all of our activities internally and externally are perfectly aligned with Krishna's will. And because we realize that we're part and parcels of Krishna, that in one sense we are non-different from Krishna qualitatively, right? We're spiritual parts of Krishna, but we're eternally separate. But when we're totally aligned with his will, then there's that sense of oneness of interest. Okay, text 29.
Only because of different causes does a person see a difference between himself and others. Just as one sees the reflection of a body appearing differently, manifested on water, on oil, or in a mirror.
Mm. Yeah, so these comparisons of water, oil, and a mirror are like when we see, here's this species of life, that species of life, that, or this person, that everybody's different. So he's saying that when we come to this, awakening of Krishna consciousness, then we don't see differences between ourselves and others. So this is the same thing that we were talking about before, that we understand ourselves to be parts and parcels of Krishna, and we also see everybody as part and parcels of Krishna. So we see the spiritual oneness of all beings, that we're all qualitatively the same as the Lord. And the differences that we see externally, the bodies, the mental states of different beings, that's all temporary. And that everybody's actually the same as souls. So we see the spiritual unity of all beings. Prabhupada says, this is only possible in Krishna consciousness. In this movement, there are many different races of men from all parts of the world participating, but because they think of themselves as servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do not differentiate between black and white, yellow and red. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore the only means to make the living entities free of all designations. So this is a very important point in our International Society of Krishna Consciousness, that the more advanced we become, the less we are conscious, even aware of the bodily differences between race, nationality, gender, age, and these things, and we can really connect with each other on the universal platform of the soul. Okay, then the last two verses, Sanat Kumar is going to give a warning. So in this practice of devotional service, as he's outlined it, there are also some dangers that we need to be aware of. Somebody can just read the last two verses, 30 and 31.
When one's mind and senses are attracted to sense objects for enjoyment, the mind becomes agitated. As a result of continually thinking of sense objects, one's real consciousness almost becomes lost, like the water in a lake that is gradually sucked up by the big grass, straws on its bank.
And the next verse.
When one deviates from his original consciousness, he loses the capacity to remember his previous position or recognize his present one. When remembrance is lost, all knowledge acquired is based on a false foundation. When this occurs, learned scholars consider that the soul is lost.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've been hearing about this glorious process of devotional service, how to achieve the ultimate goal of life, awaken our Krishna consciousness, spiritualize our whole existence. And Sanat Kumar is saying that, but be careful that you don't start meditating on sense objects again. Because this beautiful Krishna consciousness, it's like a lake. It's like a beautiful natural lake with pristine, pure water. But when you meditate on sense gratification, it's like these reeds that grow all around the lake, and they suck up the water of the lake and they evaporate it into the air. They're like columns that just like wick the water of the lake away and dry up the lake. So in other words, he's saying, don't let your Krishna consciousness be sucked up and siphoned away by thoughts of sense enjoyment. Otherwise, you're going to fall again into a state of forgetfulness. And this, what learned scholars consider that the soul is lost when we forget Krishna. So having come to Krishna consciousness, we have to be very careful, because sometimes we can think, yeah, I'm good, I'm cool, I'm a devotee, I can, we sometimes become overconfident, and we aren't alert against Maya's temptations, and we think, yeah, I can dabble in this little thing, I can do this little thing, I'll be fine. Sanat Kumar is saying, don't do it, don't go there, because you may have a big lake of Krishna consciousness, but these little reeds on the side, in due course, they'll gradually just suck it all out, and again, you'll be dry. Your heart will be dry. That nectar that you filled your heart up from hearing Krishna consciousness is not going to be there. Okay, so that's our verses for today. I'll just open up for questions, comments. Veena. There we go.
Hare Krishna. Sorry for the delay. I do have some questions about the instruction of Prithu Maharaj, because I need some clarification. So Prithu Maharaj is an incarnation of Krishna, if I understood the previous few classes properly. Yeah. And I was wondering about Bhakti Yoga and its founder, because, not founder, but the instructor of it, the primary instructor, because Prithu Maharaj is learning about Bhakti Yoga from the Sanat Kumar and the Kumaras. Yeah. So would they be considered, I feel like this is probably rhetorical, but would they be considered the gurus of Bhakti Yoga for Krishna Dev, or would Krishna Dev have reached this consciousness himself?
Yeah, I mean, Prithu Maharaj, he's asking these questions, but Prabhupada mentions that he's asking the questions on behalf of all of us. Oh. Prithu Maharaj already knows what the ultimate goal of life is. Like you said, he's an empowered incarnation of the Lord, Shakti Vesha Avatar, and so is Sanat Kumar. But yeah, Prabhupada says it's like Arjuna on the battle of Kurukshetra. He's also an eternal associate of Krishna, right? Mm-hmm. He comes down with Krishna from the spiritual world to help him with his pastimes. But on the battle of Kurukshetra, it's like he's asking all these questions, like, "Oh, Krishna, who are you, and how can I understand you?" And right? But he's asking for our benefit, because we need to know who Krishna is and how we can understand him and how we can remember him, and like that. So the supreme guru is Krishna. The Adi Guru is Krishna. Okay. And so all knowledge comes from Krishna, and it comes down through disciplic succession, and it's passed on from, guru to disciple, from teacher to student. So we see this throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. There are so many conversations where one great personality is asking questions to another great personality. And so that's what we're seeing here. So these are all our gurus. They're all our teachers, right? Prithu Maharaj is a teacher. He's glorifying the Lord. He teaches us how to receive and serve devotees, right? We just saw how he's receiving the Kumaras so nicely. He teaches us how to ask important questions, the real questions that we should be asking in life. And Sanat Kumar teaches us by his answers and also by his example. So these are all our teachers.
Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, good. Thank you. Something else? Yes, Krishna Priya.
When I hear descriptions of great devotees in the highest level, I feel a little discouraged. Or also, I feel like it's easy to be critical, because then when you look around you, it's like we're not really all just absorbed in hearing and chanting, and we're not really, Yeah, so how to kind of guard against that criticism when you're hearing about what the highest
is. So we hear about the highest devotees, and then we look around and we think, well, don't see any of those here, right? Or definitely, and certainly ourselves, we're like, I'm far from that. I may as well just throw in the towel now and maybe try to earn money or something, because I'll be successful in some sphere of life, right? Yeah. But the thing about bhakti is that even entry-level bhakti, just chanting 16 rounds a day and following the 4 regulative principles is so exalted. It's already such an exalted state of existence in this material world. And Prabhupada said that just by chanting 16 rounds a day sincerely and following the 4 regulative principles, we can go back to Godhead. So that's Srila Prabhupada's, that's the mercy of the Acharya, that he leaves behind the boat. It's explained like that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that the The Acharya knows the way to cross over the ocean of material existence, and he crosses it himself, and he leaves behind the boat, which is the method by which he crossed and by which we can cross. So, he crosses over, and then he sends back the ferry boat. He sends it back for us, and we just need to get on it, and we are also going to cross following in his footsteps. So, the process of bhakti is described differently in different places, but they're always common features. But ultimately, it's simple. Just hear about Krishna, chant the names of Krishna, speak to others about Krishna, remember Krishna. It's all very easy. It doesn't require really anything. It doesn't. We just need to just think about Krishna. Man mana bhava mad bhakto madhyajo mam namaskuru. Just think of me. Just become my devotee. Offer your obeisances to me, and that way you'll come to me. It's very easy. It's not difficult. When we think of this thing of being totally detached from the body and sense gratification, and sometimes we think, yeah, that's tough. I don't know. I'm definitely not there yet. But we just need to keep going, and it's just a matter of time. And we see that maybe we're not seeing it day to day in the lives of devotees that that are here in our presence, but we see that devotees, especially when they come to that point of leaving their body, they're just like focus. And sometimes devotees, they may be very Krishna conscious, but they don't show it. Like maybe that outside they'll just be like speaking about the weather or what they're going to do over the weekend, or just kind of random stuff that comes to mind. But then when they go home and in their room, they're just like chanting very deeply or reading Shastra and meditating very deeply on it. But they don't want to they're a little shy to show that off. They don't want to appear showy like a know-it-all, or, that I'm advertising myself to be such an advanced devotee that I'm always meditating on the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna or whatever. So they just talk about random stuff. So you just don't know. That's what I'm saying. You don't know who's who amongst the devotees. So we shouldn't just judge on just our little interactions with them, external or external appearance. We should give devotees the benefit of the doubt that they may be very, very advanced, but they're just not showing it. And that's actually an instruction. Rupa Goswami says in Nectar Devotion that even a devotee who's on the highest platform, who's on the stages of bhava, prema, bhakti, they should continue to go on acting like a neophyte devotee. So just, doing the simple stuff of bhakti, coming to the temple, chanting rounds, hearing Bhagavatam class, taking prasadam, making friendship with devotees. And making friendship with devotees means connecting with them on their level. So, devotees will interact with us according to our level. And so if we're seeing that a devotee may not be showing the signs of, a Mahabhagavat Paramahamsa, it may be because we're on a level where they can't show those things because they just can interact with us and where we are. So the more we advance in Krishna consciousness, the more we actually start experiencing other devotees' levels of advancement, because they start to reveal those things to us because we're ready for it. So that can be an impetus also to, for us to advance, so that we can have those kinds of interactions more often. It says that only a pure devotee can recognize a pure devotee. But one who's full of faults sees only faults. So we just need to work. We need to work on ourselves. It always comes back to that, that we need to work on ourselves, and then everything brightens up. Nanda Braja. I hope I didn't discourage you more, Krishna Priya.
I was really a little bit disturbed about this. I'm hoping you can help me.
Uh-oh, Nanda Braja is disturbed. We have to fix
Always.
this.
Always disturbed. Especially, never mind. Anyways, about this point of that there's lower religions in the lower modes. And so I was thinking, what disturbed my mind was thinking that somebody who's in the mode of ignorance or passion that Krishna consciousness might not be for them. But I know that that's not true. I'm just wondering if you can help explain how we can appreciate other religions, but also at the same time not be like, oh, that person's in the lower mode, so therefore bhakti is just not for them.
Yeah. I mean, just objectively speaking, the process of Krishna consciousness that Srila Prabhupada gave us, it's a high bar, you know? No meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling. It's like we're asked to actually give up a lot. Waking up, way before sunrise, spending 2.5 hours chanting this Maha Mantra. It's a lot, it's pretty demanding. And then on top of that, associating with devotees and only, eating what's offerable to Krishna. And, it's not just no meat eating. It's like there's many things that we don't eat. Even vegetarian food we don't eat if it's cooked by non-devotees. It's a lot. So anyone can chant Hare Krishna, but look at what Sanat Kumar is saying here. It's like a lot, constantly, continually hearing about the pastimes of Krishna 24/7. So not everybody's ready to follow these principles. But yeah, doing any of those things, eating meat, having illicit sex, gambling, intoxication. It's it's really just like squeezing your life into a very small bubble, right? If you're going to be a strict devotee. So
this isn't helping at all. No, just playing.
I'm just explaining why not everybody in the world's ready for Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada talks about it like that. He says that, that all religions are bona fide. These other religions are bona fide, but it's like ABC. It's like ABC 1, 2, 3. Just not everybody's ready to enter a PhD program or a postdoc program. First, you have to get the basic education. So spiritual life is a gradual process, and yeah, I mean, once you start chanting Hare Krishna, it's kind of like it's very powerful. So anyone can chant, but once you start chanting, you kind of get hooked. You get hooked into this bhakti process, and once you get pulled into bhakti, it's like, oh, wait a minute, is this what I signed up for when I started chanting Hare Krishna? So if that's not what you want, if you don't want to just fully devote yourself to the service of the Lord, then then these other processes of religion, they give you a chance to, go to church once a week or, however often, and basically be peaceful in your material life, but try to be God conscious and try to at least have a baseline level of purity in your existence, right? Where you're not, thou shalt not steal or kill, or, you're trying to be a good person.
I know that our leadership and our movement has a goal of 3% of people being Krishna conscious by 2035.
Mm-hmm.
And how it was defined was chanting one round of Hare Krishna and coming consistently to programs and stuff. I was just thinking maybe we need to broaden our idea of what it means to join in this process instead.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I mean, it just depends on how we define bhakti practitioner. So somebody who maybe not following all the regs, but they chant one round a day and they identify with Krishna consciousness as their religion, as their faith. They identify with, the Hare Krishna temple, ISKCON temple as their place of worship. Then you can say that person is a devotee, even though they're not doing everything that Sanat Kumar says here. But gradually, yeah, they'll be elevated, yeah. Last question here, or comment.
Just a comment. I just think back on a lot of times Srila Prabhupada when he first came, like how he met all of the hippies that first joined him where they were at. And gradually, like you're saying, they were able to come closer to that. So I think there is a place for everybody to practice Krishna consciousness where they're at, if we can learn how to meet them where they're at and give them that time to progress towards this.
Yeah. Yeah, but the point here was not to blaspheme other religions. So we can encourage people, practice your religion, but maybe try chanting 1 round a day of the Hare Krishna mantra, and see, that might help you. It might enhance your practice of your own religion, and just see where you end up going with that. So yeah, we can work with people, and just to not have a negative attitude. Like some people of some faiths, they have this negative attitude towards other religions, that ours is the only way and all rest of you are heathen going to hell. So we shouldn't have that kind of attitude, that even if we are practicing the highest process, we shouldn't think that others are not good and not doing the right thing. And we should respect their choice of practicing religion, encourage them in their path, and teach them to chant Hare Krishna. We're going to have to stop. I know Gokulanand's got his hand up there, but it's like getting late, and I know people are getting nervous about prasadam. So, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari.